Our first sponsor for the podcast is Inverted Gear. Inverted Gear sells jiu-jitsu equipment. They sell gis, rash guards, shorts, all that cool stuff. They're really cool people, really great customer service. They have a cool blog. Check it out. Go to invertedgear.com. Type in the coupon code SHOWTHEART15, no spaces. You'll get 15% off and you will enjoy what you get. Our next sponsor is Chimera Coffee. Chimera Coffee is coffee from Dominican Republic infused with nootropics. If you don't know what nootropics are, they're things that help your brain run a little quicker, fire the synapses a little faster, help you remember words better. Just Google it. Trust me, you won't go wrong. It's a great tasting coffee and you'll love it. Go to their website, chimeracoffee.com with a K, not .com with a K, coffee with a K, and type in the coupon code SHOWTHEART, no spaces, and you will get 10% off. Boom. All right, we're good to go. Kyle, how you doing, man? What's going on?
I'm doing great. Just spent the day at the beach, and life is good. No complaints.
Were you collecting seashells on the beach?
By the seashells by the seashore.
Did you get bit by a hermit crab?
No, but there were some sand crabs. There's some things to look out for. They got these little shrimp guys that like to bounce up. I had one parkour off my shoulder while I was down there. He didn't like me on his turf, so I had to move around a little bit and back off from him.
Thug shrimp. Hate them.
And where do you live? You're in California?
Yeah, I'm in California. I'm actually in Sunnyvale, but we make it down to Santa Cruz quite a bit. It's only about 40 minutes away from us. Luke Rockholdsville, Santa Cruz.
Oh,
hey.
snap.
Yeah, we're in New Jersey.
Boo.
Actually, today we finally had like a nice San Diego type day, like 77 degrees, like a little breezy, really nice out. But the last couple of days have been just like rainy and gloomy and one of those.
Yeah, well, we need some rain here, so you guys don't mind sharing with us. We'll take it.
Definitely.
Yeah, you guys had a drought for like a year or two now, right? How long has it been?
Make it about a decade.
Oh,
but
God.
we got some good rain this year, actually. Like growing up in this area, I've seen reservoirs just deplete, and then finally I see them kind of back up to where they were. So.
And is that where you grew up, around that area?
Yeah, I grew up here in Sunnyvale and Cupertino, and went to school at Arizona State, and then fighting actually brought me back here to the Bay because when I was gone at ASU and I started fighting after college, American Kickboxing Academy had blown up while I was gone. I mean, they had Frank Shamrock was teaching classes with Bob Cook's right-hand man, and Josh Koscheck, John Fitch, Mike Swick, Josh Thompson, all these guys were the names there, and they were all coming up big. So, and then Cain Velasquez had just moved back out there to train after finishing wrestling at Arizona State. And my strength coach, who was both of our strength coaches, told me that. He was like, man, if you want to fight, you should go out to AKA and train with Cain. And it seemed just like a no-brainer at that point because obviously I knew all the guys there were high-level guys, and that was right in my backyard. So I moved back in with my folks and started training. The rest is history.
Nice, man. And you kind of, from what I've heard, you kind of got like pushed in a little prematurely or a little before you wanted to. Is that what happened with MMA?
No, I wouldn't word it that way. The way I think of it is, it all happens so fast. Okay. You know what I'm saying? I mean, nice. I'm like the I'm like the chick who gets laid on prom night. It all happens so fast. I don't know what happened.
Lucky you.
When I got done with football, I knew I wasn't going to go pro or anything like that, so I started training in mixed martial arts. And probably within 6 months, I had a promoter who owned the gym telling me, hey, you're big, you can fight heavyweight, you got some skills, why don't you come in and get your feet wet and fight? And if you like it, you can continue on. If you don't like it, you never have to do it again.
Okay. And is it amateur?
No, it was pro.
Oh, wow. Okay, wow. Right into the pros.
Right off the bat. And, I won my first 2 fights in under 30 seconds.
Oof. You just
I was hooked.
Bowled him?
From then on, I was hooked. So, with very little training and zero ground game at all,
wow.
I started fighting pro and made it to 5-0. Actually, made it to 6-0 or 5-0. Then I went to King of the Cage, fought there twice, won 2 fights. And when I lost my first fight, that's when I realized, like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I need to train hard and train right. And that's when I moved out to back home at San Jose and train with the guys at AKA.
Now, right off the bat, how did football training for many years, how did that affect your martial arts abilities? Thinking back now, because you've gone through the career, you know what it takes to be at a high level at both, I assume. How do you think football training like translated when you first started training MMA? Like, I'm sure that's one of the reasons why you were like an incredible athlete.
Yeah, I mean, really, there was two ways I think that it helped me tremendously. One was the athleticism. I think that's a given, and you see that with guys who are much better football players than I ever was. Brennan Schaub, Matt Mitrione, these guys played professional football, and they were fantastic heavyweights. You can just see the way they move for guys that big. They're so fluid and quick.
Yeah.
And so I think that certainly helped me out. And then
nice.
The other way was that all my life you push yourself trying to be good, and you push yourself trying to be whatever you can be, but the best coaches can bring something out of you. And my strength coach at ASU was a guy who later went on he's now the head strength coach of the Carolina Panthers.
Okay.
He just got strength coach of the year in the NFL. This guy would have us on the field at like 5 a.m., 3 days a week, running sprints. Then we'd come off the sprints. We'd do our weight training. I had to gain weight, so he'd have me slamming however many Monster Milks or Cytos, whatever the heck they had, in the locker room there.
Yeah.
And that guy pushed me beyond what I thought I was capable of so many times that by the time I left college, I knew I was capable of much more than I ever thought possible.
Interesting.
Wow.
So you would say that the strength and conditioning coach is a little bit more important as far as pushing the fighters to limits beyond what they feel capable than their martial arts trainers? Or is it just case by case?
I would say that for me personally, that's the guy who was really a catalyst in changing my personal belief in myself.
Okay.
Strength and conditioning coaches in MMA are, they're hit and miss. Some of them are non-existent. There's plenty of camps where it's the Wild West. Even at AKA, there was no head strength and conditioning coach at all.
Okay.
Some guys would train with this guy, some guys would train with that guy, some guys would train themselves, some guys wouldn't do any strength training at all. Like Koscheck was big into, if I want to be stronger at wrestling, I'm going to wrestle more. If I want to be stronger in jiu-jitsu, I'm going to train more jiu-jitsu.
Really?
And being an incredible athlete like Josh Koscheck, how can you argue with it, right?
Yeah, it didn't, like, the way his body looks, the way he performed, it didn't seem like he didn't do any strength and conditioning. I would assume he was one of the biggest believers in strength and conditioning.
Because he's yoked and he's so explosive. That was exactly my thought. So, but if you're gifted and you're born with it, then that may be something you just take for granted and you work on skill sets and other things. And obviously, he was one of the best in the world. He made it way further than I ever did, so I can't discredit his methods by any means. But everyone was different, and that's really what it boils down to is even now, if you talk to guys in MMA, everyone has their own, it's kind of their own thing. It doesn't matter if all these guys train under one roof for their training, a lot of them still have different strength and conditioning coaches and things like that.
Sure. Yeah, like we have a student. He's a professional football player, and one thing for our jiu-jitsu classes, and one thing we noticed right off the bat is he's just so coordinated. He just picks. He's like an excellent student. It doesn't matter what he's doing. He just absorbs. Like he's a really good learner, and his coordination from his football training, his high level football training, it like translates into learning any sport really. And he's performing very well.
That is a huge thing. Football taught me how to be coached. When I was younger in high school, I was really good, and I talked a lot of shit, and I thought that I was the best thing on earth, and I talked so much shit that I even wouldn't listen to my coaches sometimes, and I was that guy. And when I got to junior college, I kept acting that way, and then they sat me on the bench for the second half of the season, my freshman year. And right then, that taught me humility, but also keep your mouth shut. It taught me how to be coached. No matter what, if you agree with the guy or not, just try it.
Yeah.
Just try it. And then if it works, then you learn something new. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine, but at least try it. And when they see you trying it, then they know that you're coachable. But if you don't try it and you think, that's not going to work, then they're not going to bother giving you the effort and coaching you.
Man, that's so important. That, like, being a good student is so important on both ends, because when you're a good student, your coach, your teacher wants to teach you even more. And when you're a good student, you'll learn and absorb things way more than you would ever if you were, like you said, you know, a little egotistical or whatever, or you think you know it all, or you don't need to learn that. That's beyond me. I've mastered that already, you know?
Yeah, if a coach feels that from you, that you know what's best, then he's going to be turned off by you. But if a coach knows that you're willing to listen to him and he knows that you're coachable, then the opposite is true. And they're going to invest more time in you and more energy and really try to help you because they know you're going to take it in and actually try to enact that.
So what do you think is like the biggest thing that people should focus on these days if they're pursuing a professional MMA career as far as strength and conditioning? If you had to recommend something.
Well, I would say this across the board. I mean, you always want a good coach when you're talking about technical things like learning how to deadlift, learning how to bench press properly. All these things prevent injury, right? And, and listening to Steve Maxwell, when you guys had him on, he's spot on. He's talked so much about it shouldn't take you brain power to learn a new skill set for something that's general physical preparedness, right?
Yes.
And this is something out of Easy Strength with Pavel Tatsulin and Dan John. Excellent book for anybody trying to get into strength training, Easy Strength by Pavel and Dan John. But the basic concept is if you have to learn something new, that should be your sport. You know, you should be spending time learning something new in jiu-jitsu, learning new striking techniques, learning the nuances of takedown defense, which I didn't have great takedown defense, but you should be learning those things. You should be learning how to do a proper barbell snatch, or learning a proper clean and jerk, right? So if you take strength training as a skill and you dumb it down to the most basic movements, what are the basic movements that humans do? We push and we pull on multiple planes. And we squat and we hinge, right? So there's your squat and your deadlift. Or kettlebell swing, or all these different things can be tossed in there and
jumps,
substituted for one another. But basically, the easier it is, the less brain power it takes. That's the one that's easier to learn over time and master. That's the one you should focus on because you can always add strength to it. You can always add weight to it to change the dynamics of the movement and allow yourself to get stronger. And those are the things that are going to transfer over to the mat with as little energy outside of the mat as possible, which is what you want.
Yeah. And I like his approach too, just to add on what Maxwell was saying is that, your strength and conditioning, your number two that you're doing should remain your number two. Your strength and conditioning should be your supplemental training for your martial art and not the other way around. So if you're spending more time learning and performing in the weight room than you are on the mats, you're doing things wrong. You got it backwards.
Yeah, completely. I completely agree with that.
Steve Maxwell gets a lot of flack for that train of thought. That's why he has I don't know. I don't want to say like he downplays CrossFit. It's just he doesn't believe in it if you're training for MMA. If you're into CrossFit and that's all you do, then spend all your time doing something like that. But if you're into, being the best jiu-jitsu player, you shouldn't be into something like CrossFit because it takes a lot of brain power and time and energy to learn all those new skills and to kill yourself even more than you would kill yourself, on the mats.
Yeah, I think there is. I have no knocks against CrossFit. For a long time, I was on the bandwagon of, CrossFit just hurts people and that kind of thing. And it's even what's funny is even to the detriment of my learning. Tom Lawler, who is Filthy Tom Lawler from the UFC, had told me for a while about this guy, this mobility guy, and he had all these cool little tips and tricks to unlock your body and do it by yourself so you wouldn't need a chiropractor or a masseuse. And I was like, man, does he have a book or a website? And he tells me about it. And he's like, yeah, the book's called Becoming a Supple Leopard.
Yeah, great book.
Tell me about it. And he's like, he owns San Francisco CrossFit. And for like a year, I was like, oh, he's a CrossFit guy. I'm not going to freaking buy this book. Give me a break.
Yeah.
And so we were on a tour for the troops in Afghanistan, and he pulls out a band. We're getting ready to do squats, wraps it around his leg, starts opening up his hips. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? That looks like it's opening you up. He's like, yeah, jump on here. Shows me how to do it. We have a great day squatting. I got like 2 inches deeper on the bottom of my squat. Wow. My hips feel amazing. And he's like, yeah, that's that Becoming a Supple Leopard book I was telling you about, the mobility one. I was like, the CrossFit guy? He's like, yeah, the CrossFit guy, you idiot.
Yeah.
So, of course, I buy the book, and now I'm obsessed. I got to meet Kelly last month. I've been obsessed with him for years, telling people, like, dude, you got to buy this book. It's so much to it. But
now you're a CrossFit
as anything
guy.
with life, you got great coaches and great people who will put movement and injury prevention and things like that ahead of everything else. And then you have other guys who will push you and just drive you into the ground, and they don't care. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you can have, in anything in life, you can have the good coaches and you can have the bad coaches. And I think CrossFit has a lot of good to it.
Sure.
That said, it does tax you, and if your goal is to get into shape and be a CrossFit guy, it's totally fine. But if your goal is to be a professional athlete in anything else, that's simply too demanding.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
That's perfect the way you said it. It's simply too demanding as far as exercise.
Yeah, and talking to like sports specificity.
Yes.
Am I saying that right? Specificity?
Specificity?
But yeah, like if I want to be better, like he was talking about when he was training hoists, what do? They did rotation training. They had, they put him at a deficit where a guy starts on his back with hooks, or they put him in, fully mounted, those kind of things. You got to work out of those positions. That's sport specific. He winds up there tired in a fight. Now he's got to get out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can go run as many hills as you want, and that's going to open up the lungs and give you better cardio. But the second you put gloves on and start hitting somebody, that's a different type of cardio.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to is if you look at your pie chart at the end of the day, how much time do you spend in each thing you need to know? And in mixed martial arts, there's just so much you got to learn. It really is. How you pick and choose and what you're able to learn, and then how you back off the throttle too and listen to your body and know when to tone things down so you don't get sick and you don't get hurt. That's the nuance everyone's still learning, and that's why you see guys still getting hurt.
Okay.
It's not that they go too hard. It's because they continue to whittle away until they're in a position where their body's compromised.
Sure.
If they're sick or they're run down and it's, hey, you know what, I'm 2 weeks out. I just got to do one more hard day sparring, and then they blow their knee out. It doesn't happen when they're fresh. It happens when they've worn themselves down.
That's so interesting that you say that. That's become such a hot topic. Time and time again, we hear about guys that are getting injured the final week of the fight, and you're like, I thought you're supposed to rest the last week or two of the fight. One thing I like is Demetrius Johnson and his relationship with Matt Hume, his coach, and they say, when I feel like I'm kind of tired on a Wednesday, he just lets me leave, and I got to listen to my body because then you get hurt. And Demetrius Johnson, you never hear about him getting hurt.
Yeah. Well, DJ is absolutely special. Anybody that's watched him, and Matt Hume is a wizard.
Yeah.
So certainly they have the right chemistry and they understand each other well enough to be able to have a second set of eyes. Because a lot of fighters, when they're, they get tunnel vision. They get close to the fight and they think, no, I got to push it. And to have a coach that can see that from the outside looking in and pull back on the throttle, that's a great thing. And obviously the proof's in the pudding with how successful those guys have been.
Yeah. From your experience, what basic formula would you recommend to someone who just had his first pro MMA fight and wants to get serious?
Man, that's loaded.
From your experience.
Again, I'll pull out an easy strength one more time. I think there's a guy in Boston who's one of Pavel's guys, and he trains Joe Lozon, and this is in the book. But, they do absolute basics.
Okay.
So, like 5 sets of doubles, heavy deadlifts after they're warm, and that's it for the strength training. The whole thing's done in under 30 minutes.
Huh.
And the other day will be a press, like 5 sets of doubles on bench press. So it's heavy weight that builds strength, but it's extremely low volume, like 10 reps for the entire day total after the warm-up. So when you consider the volume, that's going to have less burnout and less metabolic waste building up. That's going to leave you flat when you go to hit mitts later, those kind of things.
Less time loaded, basically.
Yeah, just really, you're trying to get stronger, and that's all you need it for. That's what your strength training is. Your conditioning portion is not doing battle ropes. It's not doing 1,000 kettlebell snatches.
No?
Your conditioning is hitting mitts, sparring, wrestling, those kind of things. And I think spending the most amount of time doing that. And then just for anybody starting out, really figuring out and building into play something for your body, whether it's ice baths or cryotherapy or massage or ART, active release technique, Graston. I mean, if you can find a chiropractor that does a lot of these different modalities, whatever it is, but having those built in at least once or twice a week where you can get some deep work done on your body, that's going to go miles and save you a long distance down the road. It's going to keep your body in the game.
So place a heavy priority in seeking a good recovery method.
Yeah, and that's part of it. That's just as big as any training you can do, and however hard you push, you got to be able equally putting that placement under your recovery.
And yeah, go, Marcos.
How long do you? Oh wait, do you have something on the topic?
I do, but you can go right into it.
Okay. Well, this might deviate. How long do you think someone should train before taking a fight? Because we have a few overzealous students.
Man, I'll tell you right now, personal
in.
experience, I wish I had put a gi on up until purple belt.
Ooh,
my first pro fight.
Boom.
And the reason I say purple belt is because I spent a long time at blue belt, longer than any other belt. And it wasn't until I got to purple where I really started feeling like confident. Like I'm really confident on the ground. I can hang with the upper belts. I might not tap them or beat them, but I know I have situational awareness in any position I'm in. I know I'm not going to freak out if a guy gets my back, or if I'm tired and he's got me in armbar position. I can still work out of it. Whatever the case may be, I felt personally like purple belt was kind of the turning point for me in jiu-jitsu. And if you don't have that you can say whatever you want to do. I want to fight like Chuck Liddell. He was a terrific striker, excellent stand-up guy. Nobody can take him down. And that's all fine until you're on your back.
Yeah. Can you sprawl like Chuck Liddell? If you can't, then you got a long...
People forget how great a wrestler Chuck was. Chuck was an incredible wrestler.
Beast.
Yeah.
Look what he did with his second and third fight with Randy Couture. Randy wasn't able to take him down.
Yeah, he fucked him up. Now, let me tell you the drawback about waiting till you're purple belt, because this is from my personal experience. I'm a brown belt now, but when I first started out training, I always told Marcos, hey, man, I want to fight MMA one day, but I want to wait until my purple belt, because of all the things he told me, by that time, I should be a lot more comfortable. But by the time I got the purple belt, I didn't want to fight MMA anymore. I was so into jiu-jitsu by that time. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, you know what, though? When you're 50, 60, 70, your brain is going to thank you. That is something so painfully true. And I have zero regrets about my career or any of the moves that I've made and the decisions I've made in my life.
Yes.
But there's not a second where I don't think, man, I don't like it. The second I forget my keys or the second I lose my train of thought.
Yeah.
I'm always drawn to, I wonder if...
Now, is that one of the reasons... Is that one of the reasons why you stopped fighting, or is it...
Yeah, well, there was a nice accumulation of reasons.
Okay.
Financially was one of them. It was a big one. Obviously, I don't think it's news that we get paid peanuts to fight in the UFC. So at the highest level, I still had a second job most of my career.
Wow.
It was only after my second fight of the night bonus that I was able to quit bouncing just for 1 year. Second I lost to Bonner, I went right back to work. So taking that into consideration, taking the way I was losing into consideration, I've had an orbital blowout twice in my left eye.
Yikes.
Jeez.
My left eyebrow was smashed when Jimmy Manawa kicked me right in the face.
That bastard.
To say that I'm not taking damage, it's just, I'm lying to myself.
Yeah.
If I can think like, some guy just crushed my face.
Mm-hmm.
Does this have long-term effects? Well, sure it does. I don't see them now, but for sure they're there.
Yeah. And
so I think making that realization is pretty big in the effect
And I was going to say the tough thing is, like a lot of fighters' careers, like you did, you went on a 4-fight winning streak, and then it started to go a little downhill. And sometimes we hope for the change, and then we hope for too long, and the change does not happen. So would you say, unless a change happens pretty quickly, you have to start rethinking your career? Again, I'm not like picking on your career at all. I'm just trying to like understand.
No. You please pick on my career. I pick on my career. My thought process before I had some ideas about fighting before I ever fought, and one of them was if I ever became a 500 fighter, I'd quit.
Really?
And so flying up the ranks, doing as good as I did, finishing fights so quickly, and against tomato cans, rising up the ranks before I got to the UFC, that was all great, but I wasn't learning and I wasn't taking the time to become better. And then when I was there, it was like, well, now I'm going with the big boys. I have to fight. I have to get paid. I have to do well. And I was able to learn quickly because I was surrounded by such great guys.
Okay.
We had Kane, we had Daniel Cormier once he got there. Luke Rockhold was coming up. All
Holy
these guys
crap.
made me better because I was surrounded by them. I couldn't.
You couldn't not get better.
Yeah, exactly.
Would it be accurate to say that when you joined AKA, you made the transition from a fighter to a martial artist?
Yeah. I don't know if it happened right at that point. I think it probably happened. That's a good question.
Boom.
I think I became a martial artist when I started appreciating jiu-jitsu. And that's not to say this because you guys are a jiu-jitsu podcast, but that turned the corner for me because it was fighting before that. And then when I fell in love with jiu-jitsu and I understood it differently, that helped me appreciate things from a martial artist standpoint.
Sure. But Kyle, just to let you know, we're martial artists at heart. So we've trained many different martial arts: Muay Thai, Savate, Jiu-Jitsu, Jeet Kune Do. We're students of the martial arts game. A lot of people don't know that about us. They we come from jiu-jitsu. That's our focus, but that's why we want to talk to guys like you so people don't think we're just jiu-jitsu guys,
I like that. I like that a lot.
We're martial artists. So let me segue that into a question about what's the difference between a fighter and a martial art, a true martial artist?
Well, I think it's something within. Anybody who fights professionally has to be a fighter, period. There is no two ways about that. If you don't desire to crush the man in front of you, and you think that, maybe with the exception of Damian Maia, who says, Damian talks openly about wanting to submit him and not hurt him and those kind of things. But I think the vast majority of guys, you have to genuinely want to hurt the person standing across from you.
Okay.
So you have to embody being a fighter. But embodying being a martial artist, for me, is the appreciation and the gratitude for all of the years, the thousands of years that these things were taught and understood and why they were taught and how we can adapt and make this into what we see today, because the sport is growing, and it's not just growing from a spectator perspective, it's evolving in itself. And that's why we see a guy like John Jones set the bar a little higher, or a guy like DJ set the bar a little higher. And 10 years from now, there will be guys who set the bar way higher, and that's how it grows. Same thing with jiu-jitsu. Being a martial artist is understanding how can I take these great things from all these different disciplines and employ them to make me a better martial artist. And that's what I think a true fighter martial artist is going to embody as we move forward.
Well said.
Talking about your MMA career and things like that, I don't want to say would you recommend people pursue a career in MMA. Obviously, that like you said, it goes with what you feel. But if somebody said, hey Kyle, I want to fight MMA one day, like they never trained any martial arts, they're just a big fan of the sport, and that's something they want to pursue without training ever, would you recommend that to them? They're 20 years old and they say, I want to be a pro MMA fighter one day, I want to start training now. Would you say, listen, buddy?
The peaceful psychedelic part of me says, no, buddy, you don't really want that. Or train for a while and then see if you want that. Because really, you can figure out if you want to be a fighter the second you put the sparring gloves on and get nailed in the face, right? A lot of people figure that out. Then the other fighter version of me says, yeah, dude, put them on. Let's go. Jump in there.
Yeah.
Because if you really do want to be a fighter, that'll show up, whether you win or lose in your first fight. You'll know this is for me. And if you don't want it, then that's going to show up too. So it's better to just figure it out right off the bat than to dilly-dally and fart around and, you tell all your friends and family, I'm training for a fight in 2 months and I'm trying to get some sponsors and, the guy backed out, so I'm training for another 6 months. No, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Get in there. Actually, if you like it, then continue. If you don't like getting hit in the face, that's fine. You're normal. Don't worry about it. Move on.
You're normal. That's so important. Like, if you have the desire, just go and try it. Trust me, the fact that you're trying it, no one's going to hate you if you say, it's not for me. We have to not be afraid to attempt and fail and just say, it's not for me. Let me move on. I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. And what if he gets hurt or what if this? No, but you got to know there are some things that can happen when you sign up for that.
Yeah.
Period. And I knew there was a possibility of me getting my face smashed in before I fought Jimmy Manawa, and I did get my face smashed in. So, but these things going into it, and you still do it anyways because you want to, right? Yeah. And that's really what it boils down to. If you really have a burning desire to do it, do it. Jump in there.
Now, speaking of the psychedelics, these mystery tools. You know, a lot of people tend to not want to talk about that kind of stuff, but how was your experience with it? I know you did ayahuasca, and how did that take you into your last fight? Because that was one of the main reasons why you took your last fight.
Yeah, I love this can of worms because from a non-fighting, from just a human being standpoint, I think there are a few things that can compare to psychedelics in terms of the catalyst for personal growth. You know, and in my personal experience, for me, now obviously everyone has a story about, well, I ate mushrooms in high school at this house party and I freaked out and I'll never do it again. And that's fine. You have to understand, with anything, there needs to be a great respect for what you're doing. There's a right way and a wrong way to do this. And so you can't blanketly say, everyone should try this and everyone should love. No, that's not true at all. Some people may have a mystical, life-changing experience from it because they laid down the foundation to do it right. They had the right setting, you know, the right people they were around, the right environment, and the right mindset. They knew what they wanted. They had an intention. They meditated about it for weeks or however long before the journey. And then they took the substance and they were able to figure out more things about themselves. So I think from that standpoint, they can be absolutely incredible, and they certainly have for me. And that includes the gauntlet, you know, from psilocybin mushrooms to LSD to ayahuasca, certainly being the most profound.
Now, let me ask you a question. You don't want to tell kids to do drugs, right? And you don't want to tell kids to just abuse whatever I did it, so that means you can do it. It's hard to tell people, I had a great experience with something, but you should not do it. Not that people shouldn't do ayahuasca or marijuana or whatever, but I think there's a problem with the wording. Drugs, maybe things should be labeled differently because drug has such a negative connotation. And when we label certain things, not everything, but certain things away from drugs and into another word, another category, it'll take the taboo away from it. But two, how do you tell people, and this is from what I've heard, is you shouldn't be trying things until you're ready and you can respect the trip, like you said. How do you word that to the youth?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, right off the bat, drugs has it built into the label. Certainly with the way we've classified things, you know, as a Schedule I substance, you look at LSD, which now studies are showing at Johns Hopkins University how beneficial it is for the brain. Set aside, you know, what it can do for you from a spiritual and mystical standpoint, the fact that it's just not detrimental to you. So I think we can do away with Schedule I classifications for a lot of the psychedelics and bring them down to Schedule III where they do have medicinal benefit. That said, right now they're still Schedule I. So yeah, there's a lot of propaganda. We've all been, you know, taught about the guy who perma-fried his brain from doing too much. And, you know, now he's in a straitjacket in Arkham Asylum, and you'll never hear from him again. whatever the story is, you know, the truth is you can learn a lot about these things. But as with anything, it's just about doing your homework. You know, there's some great guys down the street from me. The MAPS is a Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies. Okay. And they're funding all the research internationally, not all of it, but quite a bit of it, to do studies researching on how LSD affects the brain or how they gave psilocybin to terminally ill cancer patients and found with an 80% success rate, they no longer feared death. Wow. They're going to die no matter what. At some point, they have the dose of psilocybin mushrooms, and 80% of them felt okay with it. Like, it's okay that I'm going to die. Didn't prevent them from dying, but they enjoyed the rest of their life. And so that's important. That grow and learn. What's that?
I said, and that's very important.
That's very important. You know, what it comes down to is, A, did they hurt you? No. We're starting to extinguish that. And this is through the research, right? B, do you get something from it? And that's starting to come forth now. People are starting to say, I mean, does it enhance your quality of life? That's really what it boils down to. Because if you just want to get high, you can do that from anything. You can do that from over-the-counter drugs. You can do that from alcohol sold in the store. So really, something that's transformative and improves your quality of life, that's lasting, that's the real benefit in the psychedelic experience.
I like what you said about respecting it. If you're gonna get high, you're gonna smoke some weed. Respect it. Do it because it's something you feel will benefit your life, not because you're just trying to lay away with your buddies I mean, you can do that, but we need to respect these things, right?
Completely agree with you. When I was 19, I got out of the house for the first time. I smoked pot all day, every day. I made my college courses. I got to just a Tuesday, Thursday schedule. So I never had school back-to-back days. I would blaze all day, every day. And I know plenty of people who are functional and do well. They have high-paying jobs. They show up to work on time, and they live that way.
And they get all potted up.
I was not good high all the time. I did not enjoy life. And my baseline was me just not being comfortable with being me. And once I discovered that and grew and learned things and got punched in the face and
got
drank
humbled.
the tea from the Amazon, all these things, I now have a deeper appreciation for cannabis. And my wife and I both use it. We use it at night. It enhances our sleep. We wake up. Sometimes if we want to be high for a movie, we'll be high for a movie. Mm-hmm. But my baseline of being sober and enjoying life the way that I am has been greatly enhanced because of that. And I know that these other tools are just those. They're just tools. They're not my baseline. My baseline is okay. And when I want to take these other things to add to that, then I can do that with the respect that I have for those plants.
That's a good word, tools, to get me something else. Just like, eating vegetables are tools to have good, clean energy, nice energy. Carbohydrates is a tool for you to be able to exercise or whatever. Water is a tool for you to be able to continue living and not get headaches because you're dehydrated. These things are tools for our bodies to do better. Now, I'm not saying I'm for or against quote unquote drugs. I just feel like people should be able to make their own decision. I think people should be properly educated, but they should ultimately be able to make their own decision. If everything's illegal, then you'll get all these people that want to do things because they're taboo and not because they're beneficial.
I agree with that. And really, like you said, when you have everything labeled under one classification of these are drugs, don't do them, drugs are bad, blah, 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 then that's easy to kind of toss them all underneath, one umbrella as taboo. But as you understand psychedelics and you understand cannabis, obviously now with medical cannabis blowing up and recreational cannabis in 5 states now in the U.S., the tide is definitely shifting on cannabis. We understand now there's great medicinal properties to it. Mm-hmm. And that's something that for kids, hey, we don't know what it does yet with kids long term. We don't know what it does with a brain that's still developing. So that's something to be looked at. And that's an easy way to say that's something I'm going to tell my kids on why they shouldn't smoke pot and they should wait until they're 25. Gotcha. And then you can do that with a fully developed brain. Sure, you can get down like mom and dad do, but wait until you're fully grown, and then we can start to experiment.
So how do you educate kids or young people, and how do you be a good role model in the public eye when you are a believer in, again, I don't want to use the word drugs, I want to use the word these external tools that are labeled
psychedelics.
drugs.
We could say psychedelics or the plant medicines. Or psychedelics, I feel like, in anything in life, do you practice what you preach? How does that person live? If I see somebody who's talking the good talk and, like any politician or these evangelists or whatever, then they get caught, doing whatever bad thing that guy might be caught doing, you second guess the whole thing. You're like, come on, So how does that person live? What are they really embodying that they can gather from these personal experiences that have been so profound to them? How do they embody that, and how do they live accordingly with these new teachings? And I think when you see somebody who's used psychedelics in the right way over time, you see somebody who's really just a tremendous person. And in my experience personally, and obviously there's bad apples anywhere you go. I think, if you talk to somebody who said that they've done psychedelics and it was an amazing experience, once you can get past the fact that person ingested mushrooms or LSD or whatever negative connotation you have on that specific item, you can listen to what they have to say at its core, and you can listen to how it helped them have a new perspective or see things different or healed from some trauma that happened to them. And that really is the story that you can connect to, because as human beings, what we're listening to is not, oh, you did drugs. You're listening to, you healed from something. Tell me how you healed from that. Or you now see things differently with your relationship, and you're a better husband or a better wife or a better mother or a better daughter, all because things impacted you differently.
A happier person.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And another way I look at it is like, it's kind of like drugs. People feel like drugs. You see what you get. You know what you get.
Drugs. They're plant medicines.
These drugs. That's LSD. It's terrible for you. You see what you get. So people, they don't like it automatically. But then when you get prescription drugs, why is it that we feel like it's a lot easier? Oh, because these doctors, these scientists, they put it together and they formulate it into this specific tablet with it only has this amount, and it's perfectly calculated and it's perfectly formulated, and the recipe is perfect.
It's a vegan capsule.
It's a vegan capsule. It's gonna digest properly. But like for me, it's kind of the same thing. Like when you talk about like people eating hamburgers and hot dogs, as long as it's just whatever they see is what they get. They'll eat hamburgers all day, but the second they see, Food Inc. documentary and they see what goes on, how to make those burgers, they don't want to do it anymore because now they see what the hell's going on. So I feel like that's how, like, the difference between like illegal drugs versus legal drugs is, like, people make you feel like, this is just made just like a chicken nugget. Don't think about it. Don't think about what's in it.
You're right. Let me jump in here. You're
Please.
Completely right.
Help me out.
Once we get, it's just awareness. The more that people like maps.org help facilitate this research globally, and here in the United States as well, the more research being done at Johns Hopkins University, the second these studies come out, people want to know about them. And thanks to the interweb, we are able to see these things instantly. So the bullshit meter is gone. We can see things now. That doesn't mean that everything you see on the internet is true, but my point is, the more good people that find benefit in this, the more they want to jump on board and push this psychedelic movement in the way that it should be pushed, medicinally and guided, where it's not just little Johnny at a house party slamming booze and pills, and then he has mushrooms and freaks the fuck out. That's not the right way to do it, right?
Yeah.
So I think as we have this push and we decipher the right way to do things, the wrong way to do things, and how you can benefit from it, and then the sharing of that information, thanks to the web, then we're able to kind of cut through the crap and understand that, oh, hey, maybe this pill, not so good for me. Maybe, maybe this pharmaceutical company that's raking in billions and billions of dollars a year has a reason to keep this in my hands and to not let me heal from what I need to heal from, so that way I keep taking that pill, right? So I think there's things like that, just like in Food Inc. But what Food Inc., let's clarify, Food Inc. didn't say don't eat burgers. It said don't eat conventionally farmed animal factory burgers.
Yeah.
They showed grass-fed, free-range cattle, and they showed the right way to let free-roaming chickens lay perfect eggs with nice orange yolks. So it's not a...
Yeah, there was no agenda with that. Vegan. Yeah. Like I don't want to go into it, but like, you bringing up the pharmaceuticals, it's like the documentary, if anybody gets a chance, Prescription Thugs, it was so powerful about how there's some companies that, like, they sell you the medicine, and then they also create the medicine to help cure the side effects from that medicine, and so on, and it's crazy.
It's comical, but I mean, this is what's going on. This is kind of the state that we're in. So it's hard because if you wake up one day and you just take the pill they put in front of you, it's easy to just set the wheels in motion in that direction. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to figure out that if there's money behind it, then there might be ulterior motives.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that Western medicine is all evil. I had a torn labrum, I had surgery. Western medicine was awesome for that.
Boom.
But for health, for wellness, for figuring out, dietary problems that are causing systematic inflammation and causing a series of things to cascade, and that results in joint pain you shouldn't have because you're 35 and you have arthritis of a 60-year-old, whatever the case may be, that's not going to be fixed at the doctor's office. That's going to be fixed by you doing your research, reading books, learning about health and wellness, and that's your own preventative care. It's the knowledge to prevent it.
Thank the interwebs.
Those interwebs are great.
The old interweb.
Now, let me ask you another question. Let's move on. What is the biggest I don't know, what is the thing that's made the biggest change in your life? It could be fighting, it could be, ayahuasca, it could be
A marriage.
It could be a kid, it could be seeing a sunrise or a sunset in Hawaii. What is the thing or the activity, whatever, that has made the biggest profound change in your life, if there is any?
I would say without a doubt it's been ayahuasca.
Oh,
and I've had profound psilocybin mushroom experiences, but if I was to pick one thing, it would be ayahuasca. And the reason for that is you can't change the past, but you can change the way you perceive the past. And being able to relive certain things and experience them from a different perspective and from a different angle totally makes you feel differently about them moving forward. And so you can change the past in your own mind and in your own heart, how you feel about things. And that perspective shift has enhanced my quality of life greatly.
Wow.
It's enhanced my relationships, it's made me a better person, and really just, I get more out of life because of my experiences from ayahuasca.
Wow. Now, what if somebody is too afraid to do something like that? They're just refusing to do it, or, again, they're just too afraid to do that.
The next best thing, and people who always want that's illegal, or I don't know anybody that has that. Meditation has been massive, and that goes hand in hand with ayahuasca for me, because I was like a lot of people. When I would try to meditate, I'd be like, man, I don't know the point of this. I can't quiet my mind. I get bored. I can't sit still. Or if I'm tired, I just fall asleep because I need a nap. But I don't appreciate meditation. Okay. And then through my ayahuasca journeys, I was able to find deep inner silence that you shoot for in meditation. And with that, it made my meditation practice better.
Wow.
But I think now we're very privileged because of sites like Brain.fm. Have you heard of these guys?
No. What's that?
So Brain.fm is a binaural beats website, and you just punch it in. You tell them if you want to focus, if you want to relax and meditate, or if you want to nap or sleep. Punch it in, throw in your stereo headphones from your iPhone or from your computer.
Okay.
Off you go. You can focus or you can meditate way better. And I don't want to have to go into explaining binaural beats technology and things like that, but you're basically training your brain to get into an alpha wave state at a much quicker level. So this deep relaxation you hope for with meditation can be attained. And if you're like me, you think a lot, you can't turn your mind off, now you can focus on these beautiful waves or the forest or whatever tune it is that they have playing.
Okay. Or you could finally fall asleep.
Yeah. If you want to nap or you want to sleep, that's a part you can press on too.
Dope.
But basically, it's just an easy way to kind of hack into your brain and allow this deeper meditation to take place. Because no matter what you do or who you are, we all need stillness. If you're an American or a Westerner, it's go, go, go. It's have your coffee, smoke a cigarette or whatever it is, throw in your dip. All things go, all systems go, and you never really find stillness inside. And when you begin to take that break and just relax, not only does that give you a more peaceful state of being, it also enhances the times you need to focus and concentrate, because you've given yourself that pause that everything else enhances.
Wow, that's pretty profound. Take a minute to just breathe and not think about things, live in the moment and just relax and just breathe.
Yeah, that's much easier to do if you give yourself just 10 minutes of me time, whether it's first thing in the morning or at lunch or right before bed. But you find that silent space, that's gone miles from me.
Now, what about all those lazy people out there that, hey, I don't got time to meditate. What's the third best thing? I don't got time to meditate. Well,
here's one that I love, and I don't know if you guys ever listened to the Wim Hof episode.
Oh my God,
Rogan,
he's amazing.
I'm obsessed with Wim Hof.
Let's all do the Wim Hof breathing right now together.
All the way in, letting go. All the way in, and letting go.
Right on.
I love that guy.
Right on.
Man, he's a beast. But I'll do Wim Hof breathing on a drive. I'll throw on a podcast. And I'll just start huffing and puffing. I won't do the breath holds quite as long because I'm behind the steering wheels and I don't want to go off the road. But I'll still get in 30, 40 really deep breaths halfway out. And as I'm doing that, I'm starting to feel charged. And as I'm focused on the breathing, I'm no longer focused on bullshit going on in my life. I'm just focused on the next breath, right? And And so that creates the space in my mind. That creates the gap. And that's really what it boils down to.
The funny thing is, when I first heard the Wim Hof episode on Joe Rogan, like I got so inspired, bought the app, did all the research.
Very impactful.
And then the next day, I practiced the breathing. I practiced the breathing at home, and then did my stuff, and then I went for a drive. I had to go run errands or whatever, and it was like a 10-minute drive, so I had time. So I'm like, let me practice the Wim Hof breathing. Man, after like breath 20, I started feeling lightheaded. You know, you get that
yes,
that
that's what you're going
feeling.
for.
Yeah, but not while I'm driving.
That's why it takes a little bit more. You know,
Yeah.
If I really want to go deep, I'll lay down, I'll have my eyes closed, and I'll go deep with the breaths. And sometimes I won't even count. I'll get up to 40, 50 breaths. I'll do the hold. And instead of doing 3 or 4 rounds, I'll just keep going. I'll do rounds for 45
what's your time?
minutes.
What's your
to an hour.
best time?
What's your times, man?
What your time is?
Oh, my held breath time?
Yeah.
Yup.
I think the best I ever did was it was just over 2 minutes. I really don't have great held breath time. I know that a lot of these guys get to 3 or 4 minutes holds.
Nice.
For
man.
me, I'm thinking more about getting the round, because when he talks about feeling the charge in your hands, and I don't want to get into energy work and chi and yoga and all this type of stuff, but when you feel that charge of energy in your hands and your toes, I personally feel that more right when I finish the breathing. So the longer I hold my breath, the more that fades away. So I want to get back to that high. I want to get back to that charge in my hands, and I want to get back to that feeling of lightness and luminous in the body. That's what I'm
that energy orgasm.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm thinking about
The
beating my
breathwork
time.
orgasm, the oxygen orgasm.
Oxygen. There we go. That double O. That oxygen orgasm.
Oh,
What were you saying, Marcos?
oh, nothing.
I don't know where to.
Kyle, I got to 3 minutes and 28 seconds.
Why are you bragging? What is?
Because I need
That's
to.
badass. No, it really is.
Why, thank
You know what I noticed is that I've done altitude training and things like that, and the longer I do altitude training, the better I've been at anything with regards to that. That said, when I work nights, like I have been for the last however many years, I can't do altitude training without getting sick.
Wow.
So I wonder, this is something I want, and down the road, I hope to have my own gym where I can teach these things and not work nights as a bouncer bartender. I will employ altitude training back in, and then I'll see if I could push past that measly 2-minute mark and try to attack your 3-minute and 30 mark.
Measly.
I think my best time was like 3:30. It had to have been more than Marcos. So what?
It was. I think you were like 3:32.
What did you say, 3:28? Yeah, mine was probably 3:29, 3:30.
Yeah, something like that. I have to. He's got 10 years on me, maybe more than that. So I got to beat him at something. You know what's funny about altitude? I went to Denver last year for the first time. We went for a hike. We spent a week there, like 6 days. I didn't feel really affected by the altitude as much. I think, I don't know. I didn't really, even when I took a jiu-jitsu class or two, I didn't really feel like affected by it. Do you think it would have taken longer for me to really notice a difference, or everybody's different?
Everybody's different, but I can tell you right now, if you're used to doing any type of Wim Hof breathing, you're now learning how to breathe with your diaphragm. And people don't belly breathe; they chest breathe, right? This is many strength coaches talk about this, not just Wim Hof.
Yeah.
But that basic human breathing mechanics, when you learn how to do that and you're used to full expansion of the lungs, now when you go to altitude, it doesn't affect you as much because you're getting adequate air.
Yeah.
You're getting that turnover into the body. And being an athlete doesn't hurt either. So you probably have more capillaries, and your veins and your arteries are working properly. Your heart knows how to pump blood efficiently. So you're not going to have some of this altitude sickness or things that other people might.
Okay.
Who don't practice those things.
So being an athlete and being in good shape and being, fuel efficient, your own body's fuel efficiency does make a difference in altitude. That's interesting. That's good to know.
Big time. Big time.
Because the whole thing out there is you go to Denver and you can't breathe. It's so tough. My first class there, my first yoga class, I was I had to stop because I had an asthma attack or whatever. That's interesting. So I know I've been practicing diaphragmatic breathing for a while. Not like, I'm taking time out of my day to practice it, but like I focus on it when I'm training, especially when I'm doing jiu-jitsu and it's not really hard training. I always focus on my breath and try to breathe through the belly. And I guess maybe that helps. And definitely Rickson Gracie was a big part of me realizing how important that was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, think about it, too. I mean, if you start breathing short, there's so many things that plays into from a nervous system standpoint. All the fight or flight mechanisms are kicked on.
Mm-hmm.
All your fight or flight hormones are kicked on.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden you have this panic you didn't necessarily need to have, but you made it happen through your own short breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you switch that and take these nice, full, deep, relaxing breaths, then you're hacking the exact opposite. And you can stay relaxed in a situation where a guy might be trying to choke you, or a guy has you mounted and he's searching for an arm. Whatever it is, if you're comfortable and you're taking the right breath work, that can allow you to think and make decisions better when you're facing adversity.
So do you implement, if you're teaching somebody, do you implement breath training?
There's no question. Breath work's a part of everything. Whether I'm rolling with a guy, I mean, just think about it. You can't coach a white belt or a blue belt without stopping them and telling them to relax.
Oh, all the time.
That's the most common mistake young people that are getting in the game, or old people, just new people to the sport, is being tense. Same thing in the striking department. I mean, how many guys do you watch strike that are so stiff, and it's like, dude, loosen up.
Yeah,
take a
relax. Breathe.
Relax. Yeah, you only have to be tense when you on impact, or if you're blocking something, whatever. But if you hold yourself that way, you won't last a minute.
Yeah,
there's no way. So
yeah, ironically, whenever I compete or Marcos competes, we just kind of compete at jiu-jitsu nowadays. But the number one word that's being said while either one of us are competing is breathe, 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 and like that helps big time when you're in the middle of a transition and your coach is like, he's telling you to breathe. He's not telling you watch out for that. Like it kind of centers you back, and when you do start focusing on your breath, you don't feel in as much danger, even if you are in danger. It's incredible how that.
And just like you said, even from the coach's mouth, if he's saying, watch out for this, watch out for that, God damn it, don't do this, you feel that panic in his voice, as opposed to just breathe, breathe, breathe. Okay, now pass. Breathe. Whatever the next thing is after breathing first, now I can be receptive to the instruction.
Now, do you, I know some people say, like, I don't coach my fighter. When he gets in the cage, it's all him. We practice everything. I shouldn't necessarily need to coach him. I just tell him things like breathe and be patient. Do you think that's just subjective to each person, or is there some validity in that? Like, hey, maybe we shouldn't focus too much on yelling instructions out because of the inflection in the voice that can create panic, or it's different per person.
Well, it is person to person. Every fighter's individual. So you got a guy who likes getting hyped up, and you watch the fights in Thailand, things like that. Every time a body kick lands, they all cheer each other on, those kind of things. So if you get fuel from that, then that particular fighter needs that fuel, and you want to encourage him to give him that response. But for somebody else who's already maybe a little overhyped, you want to calm them down. Then you give them less instruction. You focus on breath work and things like that. I think any fighter, no matter what they're doing, they need instructions. And they don't need, throw the left to the right and then the kick to the body while they're in the fight. They don't need that mid-round. They do need instructions when to breathe, when to relax, when to circle out, look for different cues. Or if this guy's hunting some certain thing that he's known for, like you're circling into Crow Cop's left leg, that's something your coach might want to yell out at you to prevent that from happening.
Hey, there's sharks in that water. Don't go that way.
Yeah, don't go that way. Don't go that way.
Yeah.
So I think there's some things that definitely need to happen with instruction, but the simpler it is, the better, especially when you're looking down the barrel at somebody else.
That's the perfect ending, my friend. I know we got to go. We want to be conscious of your time, but I thought that was a perfect ending.
Word.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate you guys and what you do, and love the podcast.
For sure, man. And please, if you have any shout-outs, throw them out there.
Well, I was starting my own podcast, Mom's Garage, but it looks like it's going to be put on hold because we live in my mom's garage and don't necessarily have the best place to do it with a 1-year-old. So look for that down the road.
Okay.
Definitely.
But that's about it, man. I appreciate you guys having me on. And follow me on Twitter at Kingsbury. and on Instagram at Kingsboo. Much appreciated.
For sure, man. And we hope to talk to you soon.
Definitely.
Take care, brother.
Awesome, guys. Talk to you soon. Take care.
See you, my man.